I was celebrating my 62nd birthday at home when my 10-year-old granddaughter quietly slipped a small piece of paper into my hand. "Grandma, don't eat that. Please trust me." I froze. I decided to switch my cupcake with my daughter-in-law's, and what happened 5 minutes later left me speechless. That day, my son Jacob hosted a small birthday dinner at his home in the suburbs of Seattle. It was just the four of us: me, Jacob, his wife Amanda, and my granddaughter Lily. The house was decorated warmly in beige and blue tones, colors Amanda always said fit the family's energy. On the walls hung family photos, but I noticed there were far fewer pictures of just Jacob and me than before. That spring afternoon was soft and calm. The dining table was neatly set with the lace tablecloth I had given them last Christmas. In the center sat a vase of wild daisies, my favorite. Sunlight streamed through the large window, bathing everything in golden warmth, a peaceful contrast to what was about to happen. Amanda cooked all my favorite dishes: herb-roasted chicken, cheesy potatoes, and a fresh green salad. For dessert, she made chocolate cupcakes topped with cream cheese frosting, the very recipe I'd taught her when she first married Jacob. Back then, I thought it was a sweet gesture. How naive I was. "You look wonderful today, Mom," Jacob said, hugging me as I walked in. His eyes were full of affection, and my heart softened. Amanda smiled, kissed both my cheeks, and gave me a polite, distant hug. Only Lily seemed different. Normally lively and talkative, she was quiet and tense that evening. Her big brown eyes avoided mine. When Amanda told her to give me a hug, she did, but stiffly, which puzzled me. I assumed something must have happened at school, or that there'd been a family argument. Children often carry worries adults don't understand. Dinner went on normally. We talked about Jacob's insurance job, my new senior yoga class, and Lily's grades. Amanda spoke little, as usual. I used to think she was simply reserved, but now I see it was a carefully measured coldness. I began noticing odd details, the way Amanda kept glancing at her phone under the table, the wary look she gave me when she thought I wasn't watching, her fingers tapping lightly on the surface, and those fleeting glances exchanged between her and Jacob. There was something in those looks I couldn't quite read. "Let's start the birthday celebration, Mom," Jacob said cheerfully after dinner, bringing out a tray of cupcakes. Instead of a cake, Amanda had made several cupcakes, one topped with a tiny crown. I was touched, not realizing there weren't any candles. As everyone started singing, Lily, sitting next to me, slipped the small note into my hand while her parents were distracted. Her movement was quick and discreet, no one noticed. Her eyes met mine, pleading. My pulse quickened. I waited until Jacob went to grab his camera and Amanda stepped into the kitchen for plates. I unfolded the paper under the table, my hands trembling. In Lily's messy handwriting, it read, "Grandma, don't eat the cupcake. You're in danger. Please trust me." The world seemed to stop. I looked at the cupcake before me, sweet, harmless looking. Lily shook her head slightly. At first I thought she was imagining things, but the fear in her eyes made me hesitate. When Amanda returned, I tucked the note into my pocket. Her smile looked the same, but now I saw something cold behind it, like a predator waiting for the right moment. "Grandma, pick your cupcake," Lily said, her tone unusually firm. Before I could respond, Amanda interrupted. "No need, Mom. I made a special one just for you, the one with the crown." She pushed it toward me, her gaze darting between me and the cupcake. I stayed calm, waiting for the right moment. When Jacob got caught up telling a funny story, I quietly removed the little crown and switched. My cupcake with Amanda's. The move was swift and unnoticed. Jacob raised his glass. "To Mom, the strongest, most amazing woman I know. Happy birthday." We toasted, and Amanda suggested taking a picture while we all took a bite. I pretended to eat but didn't swallow. She took a large bite of the cupcake that had been meant for me. About 10 minutes later, while we were chatting, I saw her start to sweat. Her hands trembled slightly, though the room was cool. "You okay, honey?" Jacob asked when he noticed her face turning pale. "Must have eaten something bad," she whispered, her voice faint. Her eyes met mine for a split second, first confusion, then terror. She understood. She knew I had switched the cupcakes. Lily watched, eyes wide with both fear and relief. My chest tightened with love and pity for her. "I don't feel good," Amanda gasped, standing up unsteadily before collapsing into Jacob's arms. "Amanda!" Jacob cried, panicked. She was shaking violently, drenched in cold sweat. "Call for help," I said, forcing myself to stay calm. While Jacob ran to call 911, I knelt beside Amanda, not out of sympathy, but to make sure she lived long enough to face justice. Lily trembled beside me. "Grandma," she whispered. "Last night I heard Mom on the phone. She said she got strong heart medicine and would put it in your cupcake. She said no one would suspect anything because you forget things sometimes." I pulled her close and stroked her hair. "You did the right thing, sweetheart. You saved me." The ambulance ride felt like a nightmare. Amanda was unconscious. The paramedics muttered about possible digoxin poisoning. Jacob sat beside her, torn between fear and disbelief. "Mom, what's happening?" he asked, voice cracking. I kept the note clenched in my pocket, knowing the truth was about to come out. At the hospital, doctors rushed Amanda into treatment. I sat in the cold waiting room, Lily asleep on my lap, and wondered how I could possibly tell my son that his wife had tried to kill me, or how I could protect Lily from the storm that was coming. The bright hospital lights made everything feel distant. Just hours ago, we had been celebrating my birthday. Now my family was about to face a horrifying truth. When a young doctor walked out, his serious expression made my heart sink. "Mrs. Sarah," he said, "I'm Dr. Reynolds. We need to talk about Amanda's condition." Jacob jumped up, holding Lily's hand. "How's my wife, doctor? Is she going to be okay?" The doctor hesitated. "She's stable for now, but the blood tests show something very serious." He glanced at Lily, then added quietly, "We should speak in private." I nodded and asked a nurse to take Lily to the children's area. Once they left, the doctor led us into a small consultation room. The smell of disinfectant was suffocating as my son and I sat on cold plastic chairs. "Amanda's blood work shows an extremely high level of digoxin," Dr. Reynolds said. "It's a medication used for heart conditions, but the amount we found in her system is enough to be lethal." Jacob turned pale, his face a mix of confusion and horror. "Digoxin? Amanda doesn't have heart problems. How could that be in her body?" The doctor met his eyes. "That's exactly what we're trying to determine. This medication doesn't appear in the bloodstream by accident. Someone administered it intentionally." At that moment, I knew I couldn't hide the truth any longer. With trembling hands, I took Lily's note from my pocket and handed it to my son. "Jacob, Lily gave me this right before dessert." He read it, his hands shaking uncontrollably. He looked at me, then at the doctor, disbelief in his eyes. "No, that's impossible. Amanda would never do that." "Jacob," I said, my voice strangely calm. I switched the cupcakes. The one she ate was meant for me. The doctor was silent for a moment, then said gravely, "I'll have to notify the police. This appears to be a deliberate poisoning." Jacob looked as if he had aged 10 years. "There must be some mistake," he said weakly. "Maybe she mixed up ingredients." I replied softly. You know that's not true. Lily overheard her phone call. Think about it. Haven't I been forgetful, dizzy, and tired these past months? Jacob's face went rigid as realization hit him. Oh my God, he breathed. Amanda said you were showing signs of early dementia, that we should consider a nursing home. I believed her. Doctor, Reynolds interjected gently. We'll need to take your mother's blood, too. If she's been given digoxin for some time, we have to assess any heart damage. I immediately agreed. When the doctor left, it was just my son and me, separated by a chasm of betrayal. Mom, Jacob said hoarsely, why would Amanda do this? For what reason? I looked at him, my voice steady. Money, probably. Remember the inheritance Aunt Gabrielle left me 6 months ago? That's when the memory lapses began, when Amanda started visiting more often, always bringing food and tea. Jacob looked stricken. She was planning to kill you and use my name to get the money. I nodded. And Lily found out. That child carried a burden far too heavy for 10 years old. The door opened, and a middle-aged detective walked in with an officer. Mrs. Sarah, Mr. Jacob, I'm Detective Miller. We need to talk about what happened. The following hours blurred together statements, tests, questioning. Detective Miller was thorough but kind, especially with Lily. The girl explained that she had woken up thirsty the night before and heard her mother on the phone in the kitchen. Mom said the medicine was strong, she whispered, that it would make Grandma seem confused and no one would suspect because she already forgets things. Her voice trembled. I knew it was wrong. Mom always told me that poisoning people is bad, that only bad people do that. The innocence of a 10-year-old clashed cruelly with the darkness of adults. I held Lily's hand tightly, silently thanking her for her courage and clarity. My own test results confirmed it. There were traces of digoxin in my blood. Not enough to kill, but enough to prove I had been slowly poisoned for weeks, maybe months. Chronic digoxin poisoning can cause confusion, fatigue, and memory loss, Dr. Reynolds explained. Symptoms that are easily mistaken for aging or early dementia. Detective Miller took notes, then asked Jacob, Did your wife ever suggest changes to your mother's will or finances? Jacob nodded heavily. 2 weeks ago, Amanda had Mom sign a power of attorney so I could handle her finances if her health declined. I thought we were helping. And where are those documents now? In our safe at home. Detective Miller requested that Jacob hand over all paperwork for investigation. If those documents were signed under deception or coercion, they'll be invalid. While they talked, I looked over at Lily sitting quietly in the corner. Her small shoulders carried a truth no child should bear. I went to her and knelt despite the ache in my knees. Lily, sweetheart, you did the right thing. You were so brave. She looked at me, her eyes a mirror of Jacob's. Mom's going to prison, isn't she? I couldn't find the words. How could I explain to a child that her mother might go to jail for trying to kill her grandmother? I don't know what will happen, I said honestly. But you, your dad, and I will get through this together. We'll protect each other. She nodded, understanding far beyond her age. Mom did something really bad, didn't she? Yes, sweetheart, but you didn't do anything wrong. You saved my life. That night, none of us went home. Jacob and Lily stayed with me in a small hotel, near the hospital. We couldn't face the house tainted by betrayal. Lily slept between us, her breathing finally steady after hours of tears. In the dark, Jacob whispered, Mom, how do we move on from this? How do I tell Lily that her mother tried to? His voice broke. One day at a time, I murmured. We'll live with truth and love, one day at a time. I looked at Lily sleeping peacefully, the only light in this nightmare, and silently promised to help my son and granddaughter find a way out of the darkness, no matter how long it took. The next morning, the doctor informed us that Amanda had regained consciousness. Her heart was stable, but she remained under close observation. Detective Miller suggested I confront her, with police present, to record an official statement. I hesitated. I don't know if I can face her, I admitted, my hands cold. I understand, the detective replied gently, but it might help you find closure. Jacob wanted to come with me, and Lily stayed with the social worker. As I walked down the hospital hallway, the white light seemed harsher, and the smell of disinfectant felt heavier. 2 police officers stood guard outside the door. Inside, Amanda lay on the white hospital bed, an IV line running from her arm. When she saw Jacob and me, her face flickered with fear before quickly shifting into a fragile, pitiful expression. "Sarah," she whispered, reaching out a hand. "Thank God you're alive. I was so scared." The way she slipped so easily into the role of the worried wife left me stunned. "No, Amanda," I said, keeping my distance from the bed. "We all know what happened. Lily heard your phone call. You were talking about digoxin." At the mention of her daughter's name, Amanda froze for a moment, clearly not expecting that her own child had exposed her. Her face changed instantly, and the softness vanished from her eyes, replaced by something cold and calculating. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice faltering. "I'm the victim here." Jacob stepped forward, pain in his eyes. "We found the digoxin bottle in your drawer, Amanda, with a fake patient's name. Do you have anything to say about that?" We hadn't actually searched her home yet, but her panicked reaction told us everything. Amanda's face turned even paler, and for a split second I saw genuine panic flash in her eyes. "You don't understand," she said, changing her tone, trying to spin the story. "I was just trying to help you, Sarah. You've been forgetful, confused, losing control. Jacob, you've seen it yourself. She's getting worse." "That's not true," Jacob snapped, his voice trembling with restrained anger. "You were the one poisoning her slowly, making us think she was developing dementia." "Why, Amanda? For the money? For the house?" Amanda stayed silent for a long time, clearly calculating. Detective Miller, who had been standing quietly in the corner, stepped closer. "Miss Amanda," she said evenly, "we have enough evidence to place you under arrest for attempted murder. Mrs. Sarah's blood work shows signs of prolonged digoxin poisoning. Your own tests show nearly a fatal dose of the same substance. And we have your daughter's testimony." Amanda's eyes shifted, and then she leaned back against the pillow, her expression becoming eerily calm, detached. "Sarah's old," she said lightly, as if discussing the weather. "She's 62. How many good years does she even have left? 5? 10? After that, diapers, confusion, a burden on everyone." Her words cut through me like a knife. "She deserved a peaceful way out," Amanda continued, "a calm death, without pain or indignity. Then Jacob would have his inheritance, as is his right as her only son. He could quit his miserable job and give Lily the education she deserves." I stared at her, struggling to keep my voice steady. "You tried to kill me," I said slowly. "You pretended to care, to look after me, while poisoning my food. How could you do that? I trusted you." For the first time, something flickered across Amanda's face, not remorse, but irritation. "Oh, don't be so dramatic, Sarah," she said coldly. "You think you're special. You're just another old woman with money. There are thousands like you clutching onto wealth instead of letting the younger generation use it." Jacob stepped forward, his voice shaking with rage. "Shut up! How can you talk about my mother that way? How could you do this to us, to Lily? Did you ever think about your own daughter?" "Children are resilient," Amanda said flatly. "She'll get over it." Detective Miller gave a small signal to the officer recording the exchange. "That's enough. Miss Amanda, you are under arrest for the attempted murder of Mrs. Sarah. You have the right to remain silent." As the detective read her Miranda rights, I looked at Amanda one last time. There was no regret on her face, only a cold, empty calculation, as if she were still searching for a way out. Her eyes met mine, and an icy chill ran through me, not from hatred, but from the terrifying emptiness in her gaze. Jacob and I left the room in silence. In the hallway, he finally broke down, collapsing to the floor and burying his face in his hands. How did I not see it? How could I be so blind? She was poisoning you right in front of me. I knelt beside him, ignoring the ache in my knees, and cupped his face in my hands. "Son, you couldn't have known. Amanda is a master manipulator. She fooled all of us." "But I'm your son," Jacob choked out. "I was supposed to protect you. Instead, I almost put you in a nursing home because I believed her." Detective Miller handed him a tissue. "Don't blame yourself," she said gently. "People like your wife are experts at manipulation. They build lies so convincing that even trained professionals fall for them. You're not guilty, Jacob. You're a victim too." We returned to the hotel where Lily was waiting with the social worker. She ran into her father's arms, and my heart ached at the sight of their pure, unbroken bond amid the wreckage. The following days were a blur of meetings with police, lawyers, and therapists, especially for Lily. Once Amanda's condition stabilized, she was transferred from the hospital to jail, formally charged with attempted murder. The investigation uncovered horrors worse than we had imagined. On her computer, police found extensive research on digoxin, dementia symptoms, and how to forge legal documents. There were also email exchanges with a real estate agency discussing the sale of my house, plans to be executed as soon as the power of attorney took effect. Even more disturbing were the messages with a man named Robert, apparently an ex-lover. In one of them, Amanda wrote, "The old woman won't last 2 more months. I already got the power of attorney. Once she's in a care facility for dementia, we'll sell the house and be free." In another, she complained that I was tougher than expected, so she had to increase the dosage gradually. When Detective Miller showed me the evidence, I felt sick to my stomach, not only because of the cruelty of her plan, but because of the cold precision behind it. How could someone view another person, someone who had shared meals, memories, birthdays, as nothing more than an obstacle to be eliminated? "Sadly, this isn't rare," the detective said when she saw my shock. "We see family poisoning cases almost every month, usually over money. What makes Amanda's case different is her patience and the level of calculation." A week later, one quiet night in the temporary apartment we had rented, Lily knocked softly on my bedroom door. Jacob had finally fallen asleep after days of exhaustion. She shouldn't have been awake, but her voice was small and serious. "Grandma, can I tell you something?" I made room for her beside me, and she crawled under the blanket, small and fragile like when she was little. "I think I knew Mom was doing something bad for a while," she whispered. "After you got the inheritance, she started talking about how you were getting old, how we needed to prepare for when you couldn't take care of yourself anymore." My heart tightened. "Why didn't you tell anyone, sweetheart?" I asked. She was silent for a moment, then said, "Because she's my mom, You're supposed to trust your mom, right?" Her voice cracked. But then I heard her on the phone. She was laughing, Grandma, laughing about putting the medicine in your special cupcake. She said it would be meaningful if you died on your birthday. Tears streamed down my face. How could a child carry that memory for the rest of her life? How could I explain that some people simply don't know how to love, don't know how to care? All I could say was, "Some people are sick in their souls, Lily." Not in a way you can see like a fever or sore throat, but in a way that makes them empty, unable to love or feel compassion the way they should. "Does that mean Mom didn't love me either?" Her question broke my heart. "Sweetheart, I don't know if Amanda is capable of loving anyone the way you and I understand love, but what I do know is that your dad loves you more than anything in this world, and so do I. You're the bravest girl I've ever known." Lily was quiet for a long time, then whispered, "Can I sleep here with you tonight?" "Of course you can, sweetheart." I pulled her close and felt her breathing slow against my chest. In the darkness, staring up at the ceiling, I thought about the long road ahead. I didn't know what the future would hold, but I knew one thing for certain. No matter what came, we would get through it because this child deserved a world better than the one she had been given. Amanda's trial, the inevitable divorce, and the emotional scars we would all carry, especially my brave little granddaughter, who had been forced to choose between loyalty to her mother and doing what was right. But beneath all the pain and betrayal, there was still a fragile thread of hope. The three of us, Jacob, Lily, and I, had been bound together by this tragedy in a way nothing else ever could. The lies were gone. The manipulation ended. What remained was real love, not out of duty or pretense, but out of truth, however painful it was. I whispered to the sleeping Lily, "We'll get through this," a promise to her and to myself. 6 months after that fateful birthday, Amanda's trial began. Half a year of legal preparation, therapy sessions, sleepless nights, and rebuilding our family from ashes. The courthouse was a towering gray stone building, cold and solemn, much like the justice system it represented. I sat in the front row beside Jacob, with Lily between us. We were all dressed formally, faces calm but heavy. The prosecutor, Mrs. Catherine Woods, a sharp, middle-aged woman, had prepared us well, but nothing could have truly prepared me for seeing Amanda escorted in, wearing a plain gray jumpsuit, her hair tightly tied back, her face stripped of the confidence it once held. She looked smaller somehow, robbed of the power she once used to control our lives. When her gaze swept the courtroom and paused briefly on us, I saw something flicker in her eyes, a trace of something almost human before it vanished. Judge Rebecca Owens, a woman of commanding presence and a firm, resonant voice, began the proceedings. "We are here to hear the case of the state versus Amanda Harris, charged with attempted murder, elder abuse, poisoning, forgery, and fraud." Her voice echoed in the silent courtroom. I was called as the first witness. I walked to the stand, trying to keep my steps steady. As I raised my hand to swear, I saw my own wrinkled hands under the harsh courtroom lights, the same hands that once cooked for Amanda, that once held Lily as a newborn, now trembling slightly in the air. Mrs. Woods guided me through the testimony carefully. I spoke about how my forgetfulness began after receiving the inheritance from Aunt Gabrielle, how Amanda started visiting more often, always bringing food or tea. I described the dizziness, the fatigue, and the moments when I doubted my own memory. "Mrs. Sarah," the prosecutor asked, "what were your symptoms during that period?" "Dizziness, confusion, extreme fatigue," I answered, feeling the weight of each memory. Some days, I couldn't remember what I'd done that morning. Sometimes I'd stop mid-sentence, not knowing what I was saying. I thought I was developing dementia, like my late husband once did. But later I realized the symptoms always got worse after Amanda's visits. I thought it was from exhaustion, but in truth, she was putting digoxin in my food and drinks. The defense attorney, a thin man with cold eyes, tried to discredit me. He suggested I might actually have early-onset dementia, that everything I said was confusion. He even implied that I had put the digoxin in Amanda's cupcake myself out of paranoia. "Mrs. Sarah," he asked with feigned politeness, "isn't it true that your own mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's at 63, just 1 year older than you are now?" I kept my composure, though anger burned inside me. "Yes, my mother had Alzheimer's," I said firmly. "But unlike her, my symptoms appeared and disappeared depending on your client's presence in my life. And, conveniently, they vanished completely after my poisoned birthday. The medical evidence spoke for itself. The toxicology report confirmed digoxin in my system, not enough to kill, but consistent with long-term poisoning. Dr. Reynolds testified that my symptoms perfectly matched digoxin. Intoxication, not dementia. But it was Lily's testimony that silenced the entire courtroom. Wearing a navy blue dress, small but steady, her clear voice brought tears to several jurors' eyes. "I heard my mom talking on the phone," she said. "She was laughing about putting medicine in Grandma's special cupcake. She said it would be Grandma's last birthday. And after hearing that, 'What did you do, Lily?' the prosecutor asked softly. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. Then I remembered what my teacher always says: if you see something wrong, speak up. So I wrote Grandma the note." The prosecutor nodded gently. "That was a very brave decision." "Were you afraid?" Lily looked directly at Amanda. "I was scared Grandma would die, and I was scared Mom would be mad at me. But Grandma always taught me to do what's right, even when it's hard." In the weeks that followed, the trial exposed the full extent of Amanda's scheme. Digital forensics experts recovered emails, search histories, and messages, all pointing to a carefully premeditated plan to poison me. The medical evidence was irrefutable, and the legal papers I had signed were proven to have been coerced and falsified. The most horrifying revelation came when Detective Miller discovered that Amanda had done something similar before. 3 years earlier, an elderly woman in Texas distantly related to Amanda's first husband had died under almost identical circumstances. The woman had left Amanda a small inheritance, but there had not been enough evidence to press charges. "The pattern is identical," the detective testified. "She builds trust, isolates her victim, forges documents, and then creates a death that appears natural." When it was Amanda's turn to testify, she switched tactics. She was no longer the cold, calculating woman I had known, but a pitiful figure claiming childhood abuse and a personality disorder that made her unable to tell right from wrong. "I only wanted what was best for the family," she said, tears falling right on cue. "Jacob was miserable at work. Lily deserved a better future. I just didn't think things through." I looked at her, feeling both disgust and a chill in my chest. If not for the mountain of evidence, someone might have actually believed her, but the jury did not. After 6 hours of deliberation, they returned with a verdict guilty on all counts. The sentence, 25 years in prison, no parole, due to the deliberate nature of the crime and her prior history. When the judge read the sentence, I felt no triumph, only exhaustion and emptiness. Lily cried beside Jacob, not because she pitied her mother, but because at last the nightmare was over. As we stepped out of the courthouse that autumn afternoon, beneath a clear blue sky, I realized we were finally free. Not just free from the physical danger Amanda had posed, but from the psychological cage she had kept us in for years. Jacob held both my hand and Lily's, our 3 hands clasped tightly together. "What do we do now, Mom?" he asked quietly. I smiled. "We live, son. We live." We began to heal and rebuild. In the months after the trial, we did exactly that. Jacob sold the house he had shared with Amanda. None of us could stand the memories embedded in those walls. He moved into a bright apartment with large windows and plenty of sunlight. Lily changed schools, starting fresh in a place where no one knew her as the girl whose mother tried to kill her grandmother. I changed too. I sold my old house, now shadowed by dark memories, and bought a small 2-bedroom cottage near Jacob's new home. I planted a backyard garden, something I'd always wanted to do but never had the time or strength for. The feeling of pressing my hands into the soil, nurturing new life after coming so close to death, was its own kind of miracle. In the afternoons after school, Lily would often come over while Jacob was still at work. We baked together, made cookies, rediscovered joy in the kitchen that had once been tainted by betrayal. I taught Lily to knit, to play chess, and to recognize constellations in the night sky. In return, she taught me how to use a tablet, play video games, and appreciate the music of her generation. Little by little, our wounds began to heal, not perfectly, but enough for us to find joy again, enough to trust again, even if cautiously. A year after the poisoning, we celebrated my 63rd birthday in my small garden. It was just the 3 of us, along with a few new friends I'd met through a local support group for elder abuse survivors. Jacob grilled outside, and Lily decorated the yard with colorful paper lanterns. There were no cupcakes, we couldn't look at them without remembering. Instead, father and daughter baked a simple chocolate cake. When the candles were lit, I looked around the table and saw the faces of those who truly loved me for no reason other than love itself. "Make a wish, Grandma," Lily said, her eyes glowing. I closed my eyes and wished for what we had begun, a life grounded in truth, trust, and healing love. As I blew out the candles, I felt not just the weight of 63 years, but the lightness of someone who had been given a second chance at life. 3 years have passed since the birthday that almost became my last. Now, at 65, I look back at all that has changed, the lessons about trust, betrayal, and even forgiveness. Jacob has found love again. Carmen, a literature professor at the local university, entered our lives with a warm smile and kind eyes, like a gentle breeze after a storm. At first, Jacob was hesitant, burdened by guilt and fear. "What if I miss the signs again?" he asked me one quiet night. "What if I can't trust my own judgment anymore?" I took his hand. "No, Jacob, what happened wasn't because you were weak, it was because Amanda was skilled in deception. Now we both have sharper instincts. We know what real kindness looks like. The first time Carmen came to my house for dinner, I observed her with eyes trained by pain. But where Amanda had worn a calculated smile, Carmen's laughter was genuine, her gestures filled with quiet sincerity. Where Amanda once isolated Jacob from me, Carmen encouraged closeness, suggesting family activities and gradually building a rhythm of togetherness that included all 4 of us, her, Jacob, me, and Lily. Lily, now 13, has blossomed under her father's love and my care. Therapy has helped her face the truth about her mother and understand that none of it was her fault. "You did the right thing," her therapist told her often. "You saved your grandmother and helped your mother face the consequences of her actions." Still, there were hard days. Sometimes Lily came home with red eyes after being teased as the murderer's daughter. Other days, she asked if she might turn out like her mother, a fear we soothed with love and reassurance. I told her. Kindness isn't something you're born with, it's a choice, and every day you choose it. Amanda's life in prison became a distant shadow of ours. She occasionally sent letters to Jacob, to Lily, even to me. At first, they were manipulative, full of blame and attempts to sow doubt. "Your father isn't telling you the whole truth, Lily," she once wrote. "Ask about our secret bank account." Of course, there was no such account, just another ploy to divide us. When her letters received no replies, they slowly became more subdued, or at least seemed to. In the latest one, she wrote, "I don't know why I did it. Something in me is broken, and I can't fix it." Jacob read the letters, sometimes replying briefly with updates about Lily, but always maintaining firm boundaries. Lily, after talking it through with her therapist, decided she wouldn't read any of her mother's letters until she was truly ready, maybe when she was older. As for me, I replied only once. Not to reconcile, not to accuse, but because I needed to understand. I wrote, "Why me? Out of all the people in the world, why your husband's mother?" A week later, her reply arrived, neat, round handwriting, almost childlike. "Because you were there. You trusted me. Easy." The coldness of that answer stunned me more than anything she had ever done. In the end, I realized I had never mattered to her. I was simply convenient prey. Oddly enough, that realization brought peace. Amanda's betrayal had never truly been about me, not about my mistakes, my gullibility, or my weakness, but about the emptiness inside her, something no one could ever fill. What I felt wasn't forgiveness, it was release. I no longer needed to carry anger as armor. Instead, I poured my energy into something new. Along with 2 friends from my support group, we founded a small organization called Silver Watch. Our mission was to help older adults and their families recognize the warning signs of financial or physical abuse, especially when it came from people they trusted. We visited community centers, nursing homes, and senior clubs to share our stories and provide resources. Isolation is the first step for a manipulator, I often told them. If someone tries to cut you off from friends or family, that's a red flag. Most importantly, I reminded them that being deceived is not shameful. Manipulators are professionals, I'd say at every talk. They study your weaknesses, win your trust, and exploit the love you have for your family. Our project soon drew attention from local media. A newspaper ran a story about us, followed by a television interview. Soon after, I began receiving dozens of emails and calls from across the country, people who had gone through similar experiences or feared they were being exploited. One 78-year-old woman wrote, "My daughter-in-law keeps saying I'm getting senile, but I only feel dizzy after drinking her special tea. We urged her to get tested and contact the police immediately." Weeks later, she wrote back, confirming that toxicology tests had found sedatives in her blood. Our work had become my mission, my way of turning betrayal into something meaningful. Each person we helped escape danger felt like a small victory against what Amanda represented, the exploitation of the vulnerable by those meant to protect them. At home, our little family found its own rhythm again. Last year, Carmen moved in with Jacob, bringing her collection of antique books and a black cat named Shakespeare. At first, Lily was cautious around this new woman. But over time, she realized Carmen wasn't trying to replace anyone, not her mother, and not the special bond she shared with me. Sunday evenings became sacred family nights. We'd alternate dinners between my house and theirs, each sharing one thing we were grateful for that week. It was a simple practice, but it kept us grounded in the present, appreciating what we had instead of mourning what we'd lost. "I'm grateful for my new friend Lucy," Lily said one evening. "She's the only one who stood up for me when someone joked about my mom being in jail." Jacob smiled, eyes glistening. "I'm grateful for you, Lily. You teach me what courage really means," Carmen added softly, "and I'm grateful for being part of this family, a family that welcomed me with such love." When my turn came, I looked around the table, my son, who had learned to trust again, my granddaughter, the brave 10-year-old who once saved my life, and Carmen, who stepped into our broken family with nothing but genuine kindness. "I'm grateful for a second chance," I said quietly, "for being alive to see this moment." That night, I sat alone, gazing out at the garden I'd planted 3 years earlier. The seeds had grown into a vibrant patch of color. Climbing roses covered the back wall. Sunflowers leaned toward the light, and pots of herbs painted by Lily grew lush and green along the porch. It was an obvious metaphor, but one that made me smile. From the poisoned soil of betrayal, we had created something new and beautiful. Not perfect, there were still weeds to pull, dry seasons to endure, but it was ours. At 65, I understood that trust, once broken, never returns in quite the same form. It grows differently, more cautious, but more precious, because you know what it means to lose it. Like a bone that heals after a fracture, it can become stronger at the very place it broke. Surrounded by my family, I felt a deep gratitude for the journey we had shared. None of us would have chosen this path marked by betrayal and near tragedy, but it was ours, and we had walked it with courage, love, and a strength none of us knew we had. 5 years after the cupcake that almost ended my life, I no longer see myself as a victim or even just a survivor. I am Sarah, a mother, a grandmother, a woman who stood up for what was right. A woman who now lives each day with an appreciation I might never have known if death hadn't come so close. Life goes on, sometimes broken, sometimes mended, but always precious, always priceless. I once thought trust, once shattered, could never be restored. But now I know that within those cracks, true love can take root when we learn to forgive, when we choose kindness over hatred. Life doesn't promise peace forever, but every day we can still choose to love and to trust a little more. And what about you? Have you ever had to learn how to trust again after betrayal? Share your story in the comments below, because what you've overcome might be the comfort someone else needs to hear today. And if you want to keep walking this path with me, discovering lessons about love, compassion, and resilience, stay with us. There are still so many stories waiting to be told.